Welcome to the Elevating Voices in Leadership podcast, brought to you in partnership with Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education. I am your host. I'm Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, and with me today are my co-hosts, Dr. Maria Brame and Dr. Asya Ghazi. Our guest today is Dr. Kelly Sullenberger, who holds a PhD in Global Leadership and Change from Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education and Psychology, and an MA in Higher Education Leadership from California State University, Northridge. Her research focuses on college access, with most recently publishing her dissertation, Establishing Effective Post-Secondary Education Programs for Incarcerated Adults. She currently serves as the Associate Director of Public Affairs for Admissions, Marketing, and Communications at Claremont McKenna College, and as well as serving as a postdoctoral fellow at Pepperdine University. Welcome, Dr. Sullenberger. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am doing well this afternoon. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. So we have a pretty informal process. We kind of just ask you questions and have dialogue and conversation. So don't worry about it being overly formal. Yeah, we just, we kind of go with the flow. So we'll jump right in. Tell us about where your passion for college access and advocacy comes from.
Yeah. And sorry, I have some computer noises in the background. So it was definitely something that happened very quickly for me, like a sudden realization, which always looking back feels almost a little silly. But I came from an incredibly privileged background with family that was very fortunate to have a lot of access to education. I explain to people that I am a fourth generation female college graduate. So my great grandmother went to college, which was really unheard of for women during her time. And so I was always really grown up around that kind of culture. And it wasn't until I got to college, truly in my junior or senior year of my undergraduate studies, where I realized that that wasn't the case for a lot, if not most people. I realized that there was a lot of hurdles that students had to go through and extra steps they had to take in order to access college, which going to campus tours, having parental support with applications, so much of that was so second nature to me and something I never realized was a privilege. And it was really then that I knew I wanted to spend a good chunk of my life really advocating for those students to have better access and have resources to access the things that I was able to. And so just really asking questions of my peers and really understanding the world that I live in and the privileges that I have and how to use that privilege to advocate for those who don't have that same kind of background became really important to me.
Well, thank you for that. And before we go on, I completely dropped the ball. I have split screens and I was trying to make sure I covered everything at the intro, and I didn't acknowledge Dr. Sonia Sharifard, who's also with us. So I just wanted to make sure I corrected that because I try really hard to make sure that everyone's included. So sorry about that, Kelly. So I'm curious. As you've gone, you said that you're fourth generation and you had so much access. How did that inform your advocacy? How did that help develop so I understand the access, but can you speak a little bit more as to how that kind of propelled you, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a specific instance of a friend of mine who we were really, really similar. I felt like we were like two peas in a pod. I always said we were everything. We were both we had the similar jobs. We got to travel together. We had similar leadership positions in our sororities. We were so similar. And then it was her and the conversations I had with her in realizing different things for students who have undocumented parents or are first generation students, or maybe come from backgrounds that are underrepresented and underserved in the higher education environment. And really just realizing how different my experiences were specifically from her. And so what that propelled me is to this may sound silly, but just like think of everything that like I wasn't, which is a lot. So there's a lot of things that I'm not. That's how everyone is. And so really just thinking about asking questions and getting involved in all the different kind of student experience, whether it's that first generations, whether it's veteran students, whether it's students of color, whether it's former foster youth children, everything kind of under the sun, and just really asking questions and realizing that there are so many different life experiences that I will never experience. But the best thing I can do is find those people who maybe are or work with those kinds of students and can answer my questions so I can be a better voice for those populations.
So, and we don't have to go down this path yet, but at some point, can you tell us a little bit as to what prompted you to select your dissertation topic?
Yeah, sure. So just for some other, I guess, listener context. So as mentioned in my introduction, I did my dissertation on establishing essentially college degree granting programs for incarcerated adults in the United States. And there were a few things that influenced my desire to research into that topic. There is a famous, well-known case of Centoya Brown, who spent a lot of time in prison, incarcerated for the murder of her. She was being, I'm forgetting the name right now. She was being like held captive, and was, in self-defense, she murdered the person who was doing that. And she was held in prison and received a college degree from Lipscomb University. And really, there was a lot of transformation that she had. She got to meet with lawyers and professors from Lipscomb who are also really there to help advocate for her and her wrongful sentence. And she was able to be released from incarceration and has since gone on to become a wife and mother and, live a successful, wonderful life advocating for people like her. And so that was one of those kind of stories that really started my fascination into educating people who are incarcerated and what that can do for them. And then I just started to read a lot about the different programs that exist and just understand a little bit more about the wrongs in our criminal justice system. And there's so many things that need to be fixed. And as someone passionate about education, I was like, this is one thing that can make a difference. It won't solve all the issues that we have. But that's what kind of helped lead me down that rabbit hole of just educating those kinds of people. Another thing kind of on a different tangent is, so much of what I feel like my advocacy comes from is because I think that so much of the pressure of advocacy for underrepresented populations, the pressure is often placed on those populations. And that it can be a huge weight for those individuals who already navigate life in different ways that they, in my opinion, should not be the ones that have to advocate for whatever background that they may come from. And I think that that is especially true for those incarcerated. I mean, they lose, for many of them, their right to vote. They are truly, while incarcerated, a voiceless population. They have to ask for basic necessities. And so I thought that that was a really strong population, to research about and to talk about, because they really don't have the opportunity to advocate for themselves, let alone should be required to advocate for themselves.
So tell us about your research.
Yeah. So my research specifically looked at how to establish effective programs. There are a lot of programs, or college degree granting programs, I should clarify. There are a lot of programs that exist throughout the United States, but there is a lot of room to grow in creating more programs that could educate more individuals. And my goal was to create a tool and better understand how to do that, so that schools, universities, colleges can work with correctional facilities to create those programs more effectively. I think working in education, I know it can be really hard to start from square one with a lot of things. And so I wanted to have, maybe we're in square number 2, phase number 2, where they could start and advocate for those programs. So what my research looked at is I surveyed administrators and faculty members who have worked in programs that were college programs inside a correctional facility. And it essentially took a look at different topics and things that made it so there was like a opportunity to easily, like, what parts of the program are essential, how can we easily start things, how can we have a list of things that we will be able to quickly, get a program started. So essentially just ask their opinion and to gather a consensus of seeing what they thought on what program factors really made a successful program.
And so what were your findings and your aha moments?
Yeah, I'll start with my aha moments because I am pulling up my specific chart to reference exactly. I should have had that before. I'd start with, like, some of my aha moments were really surprising in terms of the traditional higher education college experience that we already have. In retrospect, it feels almost a little silly because, of course, like, the college experience should be relatively the same, but even as things such as like orientation and residential life and housing and all of those kinds of things were deemed to be important factors in this. So that was something that was pretty surprising to me. I think that also it's just really can be humanizing, for lack of a better word, to feel like you are deserving of the same kind of things that other students receive in education. So I think that kind of social and emotional aspect of it were really surprising. Now, in terms of the specific findings, so essentially with all the findings of the people I surveyed, I was able to come up with 5 central themes about establishing the effective programs and put them into Sullenberger's CAMPS model for correctional higher education. And CAMPS is an acronym. The C is the first section of findings, which stands for curriculum. And that was really essential in terms of providing the same curriculum as a traditional college program. Kind of the example of that is through Bard College. They have a very well-known program for incarcerated adults, and their faculty teach the exact same thing inside correctional facilities as they do on their traditional campus. This curriculum section also included things such as study skills workshops and orientations, and then developmental math and writing courses. So for students who maybe aren't quite there at the college level, having that introductory course, which is something that's really common at community colleges here in California, as well as the California state system. The A in CAMP stands for administration. So really important to have a dedicated space within the facility for the students to feel like they're kind of in a sanctuary of education and a place to kind of escape and have community within that. Access to supervised technology is another thing that comes from kind of that administrative standpoint. They don't have the same privileges as traditional students do to go back to their dorm room and open up their laptop and do their research. They have to ask their faculty members, hey, I need some articles, like, can you bring them next time? And a lot of faculty would print out articles and hand the students stacks of them to then read back in their quarters and be able to go through all of that. They don't have that same kind of luxury. So giving them space to access technology. Then M in CAMP stands for money. Obviously, there is no college program that could run without funding. So that was something that was really not, like, there was no consensus in my research of who should fund the program. Should it be the college? Should it be the government? Should it be the correctional facility? That was something that was really up for interpretation. So that's definitely something that I think can be further studied, but making sure that there is funding to support these students It also goes into the whole question of the Pell Grant, which is always a hot topic, and whether these individuals should access the Pell Grant. The P in CAM stands for program development. So in terms of the actual partnership, it was almost unanimous that people believed that they should be able to, that the formal partnership between a Department of Corrections and a college university is essential for a program like that. I believe at this point in time, there is only one college degree granting program in the United States in a correctional facility that is not paired with a traditional 4-year college or university, or community college, a 2-year community college. And that's at San Quentin in Northern California. They recently just, though, became accredited to administer their own college degree program. So that's fairly new to see as well. And then lastly, the S stands for student services. So things like tutoring and academic advising, those are those coordinated housing assignments that were surprising to me. Orientation, those kind of like traditional student experience things, but do really impact that outcome and what happens inside the classroom as well.
And so you said that one of the biggest issues was funding. What kind of funding models exist in your research? What did you find currently in place?
Yeah, so it's hard. I mean, either a lot of it comes from fundraising. So from Bard College, the one that I talked about that's really well known, because they're well known, they had a really phenomenal PBS documentary made about their program. They can get funding from fundraising, kind of philanthropy perspectives. The Pell Grant is something that I think we should really be advocating for. It was given to incarcerated individuals and then taken away. And right now it is in a trial period. So former President Obama put in this trial period that fortunately has been extended. So the trial is still going on, but specific correctional facilities are assigned access to the Pell Grant. It's not every correctional facility, it is specific facilities within the states. So it's still very, very limited access. So I think that advocating for the Pell Grant is kind of one of the best things we can do, because philanthropy, that has to come from a, privileged kind of well-known background of that. The Bard College has such a reputation around their program, which really allows for it. I'm sure they have a lot of room where they want to grow as well. But the program through California State University, Los Angeles, isn't even close to probably as known as the Bard College program. So I think that is kind of one of the biggest driving forces, as well as the university support for financial contributions. But definitely not necessarily, in my opinion, the best way to be financing these programs right now.
So what's the recidivism rate of incarcerated people, both with education and without?
Yes, yeah. So fortunately, specifically with the Bard College program, they've done a lot of research with it, and they have some really outstanding numbers. New York State, where Bard is located, ranges on recidivism anywhere between 47 to 71%. So it can get really high, and it has a big range, but even 47 is pretty significant. For students who participate in the Bard College program while incarcerated, they have a recidivism rate of 4%, so 43% lower. And that is just for students who participate. Students who graduate and get a degree while incarcerated have a recidivism rate of 2%.
Wow.
So significant difference. Yeah. And so it shows. And I that's what I keep saying to people who ask, like, why did you pick this? And I'm like, we all should care about this. This is something, like, ultimately, like, as taxpayers, like, we pay for that recidivism rate. We pay for these facilities in one way or another in some capacity. So why would we not want to care to educate them so that recidivism is lower and that these individuals can rejoin society and live meaningful lives and carry on their own legacy, and not just while incarcerated?
Can you remind us, I just, the scope of this, this information is just mind blowing, especially the recidivism rates and the incredible impact of these programs. So can you remind us about like how many programs like this are there in the US? I think you already mentioned it, but I'm just trying to kind of circle back and kind of connect all these pieces.
Yeah, an exact number, if I'm being honest, I don't truly know.
Sure.
And I think a big part of it is the programs look so different. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of programs that offer college level classes, but don't necessarily offer college degrees.
Right.
There's a new program at Pitzer College, and they do what they call an inside outside program. So they have Pitzer College traditional students go travel to the correctional facility, and they teach a class with both incarcerated adults and their traditional college students. But they don't grant a degree through their program, at least not at this time. So there are a lot of programs through community colleges that offer classes, but the number of programs that actually grant degree are much smaller.
Yeah. It's just absolutely fascinating, and read your paper, and even I've read your paper, of course, a number of times, and heard your defense and all of this, and various presentations, but you know what, each time I'm blown away. Even though I kind of know this, it's because it just is so moving, and such a piece of our world and community that we really don't think about very much, and I love so much that you have sort of invested what you kind of identify as your privilege into these populations that are so far from privilege. Do you see, and now of course you're doing the wonderful postdoc here at GCP. Are you keeping in touch with the dissertation work that you did? Do you see a future in moving forward with this? And I like that.
I would love to. I haven't done anything yet.
Well, it's still very new.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I definitely, when I finished my dissertation, I'm sure a lot of students feel this way, but I was like, I'm going to give myself like a week off and I'm going to hit the ground running. And that did not happen. Yeah. And so what I really hope to do in the immediate future is do another research study with the same methodology and include students who have graduated from these programs while incarcerated. Yeah. I think that, with the scope of my project was so limited to people who work in those programs, but being in the program would probably be a much different experience. So I want to take my model, take those resources that I found, and check from the student perspective, do they agree? Do they think that these are also the things that they want to have in their program that they felt were effective, or what's missing, what's still to come, what are the gaps, what am I missing here in the model? So I really hope to be able to utilize it with the students, and then hope to advocate or do like Dr. Ghazi just put in the chat of saying like doing like a training program for universities and colleges. I think it would be so cool, for lack of better words, to like go to a college and work with them on creating a program and working with them with a correctional facility to see a program come to life. That would be a huge dream of mine.
That's so beautiful. And it kind of makes me wonder, I was thinking as you were speaking, sort of where is the motivation for the colleges? I mean, other than fantastic altruism, and we should all care, right? And and invest in this population, which is a huge resource and so needy. I'm just kind of, I'm thinking out loud here, what exactly are the benefits for the colleges that support these programs? I'm sure there are many, and also for, for all of the people who participate in these programs, but do you have any, from your readings and all of this, do you have any sense of kind of the rewards for the specific programs, the colleges?
Sure. I've read several books and articles from faculty members who have gotten the opportunity to teach in these programs, and hearing their stories, and they're beautiful, for lack of other words. And I think that as a teacher, and as any kind of teacher, whether it's kindergarten or PhD students, you learn so much more from your students than you feel like you probably teach. But I think that that is especially true for a lot of these faculty members. So hearing their stories, I think just like that personal fulfillment. And a lot of them said that, we live in a world that is kind of exhausting sometimes. Like, it's hard to feel like you can really make a difference. It's hard to feel like you have beliefs, you want to advocate, you want to make a difference in our world. And then some legislation says, 9 people on a Supreme Court say, oh, well, and you feel like, what was that for? Or whatever it is, like, it's, I feel like it puts people kind of in a hard place sometimes. And I think a lot of the faculty said that this made them feel like they were able to make a difference in the world, and not just in a student's life, but they felt like they could kind of give back and make an impact in that kind of way too. And I think for the schools, if you look at every mission from every college and university, they always want to be change makers and leaders, and they want to help society and create a better global experience and a better world perspective, whatever it may be, all those buzzwords you see in every college and university mission. And I think that there are many colleges and universities who don't necessarily go the distance to really push the limits in order to do that. And so I think that this is an opportunity for colleges and universities to really live their mission and benefit from it as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, just thinking about what you're, how you're, describing the individual stories of faculty who have participated in this program. I mean, I could just see that could be such a beautiful book. No pressure, but really so readable. I'm sure there are some absolutely just some stories that just would make your heart sing, so that's really so wonderful to think about. So,
for my Southern California listeners, you'll appreciate the program at California State University, Los Angeles. So that's like, think of where CSULA is located. So the faculty people that teach there, they teach in the correctional program in Lancaster.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, everyone's face. So they drive, and there's been a few of them have talked about just that very, very long drive to teach a 2-3 hour course. That's kind of it, but how it's so worth it. And, they don't necessarily get extra compensation for that incredibly long drive. But the extra compensation comes from the experience that they have, and wouldn't change being able to, teach in that program for shorter commute. They probably would have appreciated a shorter commute, but
but just that there's so much value in that experience and in that particular contribution that it's worth that kind of, because we're talking about like a 3 hour in one direction kind of drive sort of thing, maybe. I'm just
with
sort of
traffic,
thinking.
probably.
Yeah.
It might actually be a little longer depending. I mean, because my drive to West LA is 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm nowhere near Lancaster.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's past, and there's no direct way to Lancaster. You either come east and go around, or you go west, northwest, and go around the other way, because it's like right smack in the middle of the mountains. So there's no, it's not like you can cut through the San Gabriel Mountains into Lancaster, because that's that's the direct route, right? So not only is it time wise, but it's also lengthwise when you're driving because of the direction you're coming in.
Yeah, it's a long drive. I've driven from here in Torrance all the way to Palmdale, just past,
next door.
yeah, it's right next door because I have a friend that lives there, and I'm like, really, an hour and a half? It's and that's with traffic. That's with traffic. Without traffic is probably an hour and 15 minutes. So it's a long drive. And I commend that they do that because they want to better the lives of the people that are there in the correctional facilities. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked up the miles. Is this possible that it's 77 miles?
Like
It could be.
that's
Mine is like 49.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, because you only either have the 14 or the 5. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't take any other freeway.
There's
It's like
no
in
side
San
streets.
Diego. Yeah, no, there's no, unless you want to take, what is it? Like right at the end of Balboa, there's that, like, I forgot the name. I was going to call it Santa Susana, but it's not the Santa Susana Pass, but it's that mountain road, but that's a long drive.
This
Yeah.
is a typical Southern California conversation. Well, we could go this way. Thinking of all of the alternate routes. Anyway.
So Kelly, here in Southern California, is there only one program?
There is only one degree granting or 4-year degree granting program. The UCs have some programs, but I don't think any of them grant degrees. But definitely in the Los Angeles area, it's just the CSULA program.
Well,
And it's for 4 years, so that it's not a completion program, it's a full-on 4-year degree program.
Yeah.
that's
And
so
I think
cool.
they may partner with a community college to do some of the initial 2 years, but yeah, they grant a bachelor's degree. I believe it's in communication. And one of the really cool things about that program is there are many students in the program who are actually serving life sentences. So they're working on these degrees and won't be able to really use them outside of the correctional facility.
Wow.
But many of them tell stories about the impact that them doing that makes on their community back home and their children and their nieces and nephews and neighbors. And, they look and say, hey, it's a male prison, he is getting his degree while incarcerated. Like, I'm not incarcerated. Like, why can't I go do that? And like, they feel encouraged to then, do more with their experience, because they see, their loved ones incarcerated, really trying to still make the most of, their lives given that circumstance.
So that's amazing. So without even leaving the campus or whatever it's called, they still have influence. That experience, that is amazing.
And in the facility too, the behavior, and there's more of a community, and it's seen that, education is absolutely a privilege for everyone, but it's seen as a huge privilege in these kind of circumstances. So behavior is different, their interactions with staff are different. It impacts so many different things.
Wow.
What role does mentorship play, Dr. Sullenberger? What about mentorship? And do you see a discrepancy among those who have been in the program for a longer period of time and their mentors supporting them? Or what kind of mentorship is preferred in the space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly haven't seen much. That hasn't really been tapped in on. Truthfully, has not been any specific mention of mentorship. I don't think that they have those things set in place. I think that staff members who work inside the correctional facility are, seen as authority figures, and not someone that people can rely on to mentor them. And then unfortunately, so much of the college education, it's the professor does the long drive to Lancaster, is there for 3 hours and then leaves. So they may be able to build a relationship, but it doesn't seem like there is a lot of mentorship. Now, maybe among the actual students, they kind of take on that themselves. But I think that could really fall under like the S category of the CAMPS model in terms of those student services, to create programs like that, to encourage not just word of mouth, like, hey, you should do this program, but really encourage more formal mentorship opportunities.
Right. That's empowering. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
just a quick question. So you just said a bachelor's in communications. Is that the only degree that they're able to get, or can they choose a bachelor's degree in another program, like say business or social sciences?
Yeah, that was actually one of the categories in my study, as whether they should be able to, I shouldn't say should be able to, whether the school should offer multiple degree programs. And I think in theory, that is absolutely the goal, is to offer different programs. I think in terms of feasibility, that it seems like the reason they pick one degree is because they don't have the capacity to send multiple faculty members out from all different areas. I mean, this is so impactful, but really when you look at it, that program has about 30 students in it. So you're really looking at a total population of 30 people. So to have tons of different faculty go out there for groups of 2 to 3 would be so ideal. But probably from a feasibility standpoint and funding and those kinds of access pieces, it's just not really possible to offer multiple degree programs.
Thank you for that. And another quick question that I had, and I don't know if this was discussed or not, but what's the percentage of graduates coming from the program?
Yeah, that's a great question. The hard part with tracking graduates is like, for example, with the Bard College program in New York, like when you are incarcerated, you don't have say over what facility you go to for the most part. So there are times where someone could be in their 3rd year of the college program, or even a semester away from graduating, and the Bard College program is only located at these specific facilities of incarceration, and they get moved to one that doesn't have it. And then they're there for 5 years and then they get released. So ultimately those people don't graduate, but it's not necessarily because they didn't want to or weren't able to. Behavior plays a role in that too as well. Again, going back to that, like correctional facilities really see these as like privileges. And so if something happens and there's a behavior issue, they can get pulled from that. So that data isn't necessarily super readily available, nor is there's a lot of things that influence that data, is probably a better way to say it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you for that. That's insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kelly, I noticed in both instances you talk about faculty going to the actual facilities to deliver the courses. Did anything show up in your research about online education versus real time or versus face-to-face education?
Yeah, a little bit. It's been looked into more so internationally. There's several, I should say, programs in different countries where they educate, and some, there's an Asian country, I forget which one, but it might be Japan, but they actually require their incarcerated population to work on a college degree while incarcerated. For them, a lot of them it is virtual. So in the United States, interestingly enough, that isn't so readily available. A lot of it has to do with just the actual technology. And there is a huge gap of access to technology for these individuals in these correctional facilities. So that is a huge gap that would have to be filled first, but could be a really great way to create more accessible programs. And even if there was still a classroom with one computer, one kind of Zoom screen, that they could, better easily administer programs in a more, quicker manner. So there's not a lot of that currently in the US.
I have a question. I just don't know what the question is. So if anyone else has questions while I try to formulate the question that's right there, that's fine.
Well, I just have an observation that I think, as with any really great study, this kind of raises lots of new questions, right? There's so many things. It raises curiosity among those of us who, have the privilege of hearing about it, and really, inspires a desire to figure out how to help, right? So, yeah, because they're just, I just have like a million thoughts and ideas, and am just so curious about all the different ways that this, these programs can be improved, and how they could be funded, and who might be interested, and the unbelievable benefits to society, all in many layered benefits, right? So I'm really, it's fascinating and so important, and I just wanted to express, to commend you on a study that really creates so much more interest and desire to do something, right? To call to action, kind of.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been great. I think that people care about this population, but don't necessarily know how to care, for lack of better words, in terms of how to advocate and how they can make a difference. And there's a lot of people who are personally touched through incarceration in the criminal justice system, and there's a lot of people who aren't, and but still want to make a difference. And it's something that, like, I think it was you, Dr. Brahme, who mentioned it is something that feels so far away and so removed from our daily lives, but in reality, it's impacting us whether we recognize it or not.
Yeah, I love that.
So Kelly, what's next?
For me, for this, for
you, for this, for everything.
What is next? I mean, I definitely want to continue researching this. I also want to just dive back into the research that I have done and revisit it and see what other maybe things. I mean, when you're writing a dissertation, you're so head into the dissertation process that I think it would be a privilege to be able to sit down with some of the data and look at other things that maybe I didn't see before, and continue to write and publish on it, and continue to see that unfold, and ask those questions, continue asking those questions, and work with colleges and think tanks and different government organizations, because a lot of this work takes a village for it to happen, and there's a lot of different players that make this possible, and also players that can make this really hard to accomplish. So I think just really keeping that at the forefront is kind of what's next around this, and hopefully for myself, getting to play a role in all of that as well would be great.
So I know that at GSEP, we've been looking at, and we've been having conversations about new possible programs. And one of the biggest barriers to a program like this is the funding. It's because we're not gonna sugarcoat it. Pepperdine's not cheap, right? Our tuition is fairly expensive. We are a private institution. And although a program like this is complete alignment with our mission, how do you convince people to give you money to create this type of program? I think that's the biggest barrier that we're finding when we're looking at this, right? And the conversation is just about a bachelor completion program. We're not even talking about a full 4 years. So what we're saying is get your AA and then you can come here and finish.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
that's been one of the biggest, components, the biggest hurdles, because
Yeah.
I think the other pieces can fall into place.
Sure.
But without money,
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I mean, step one, you can have them read my dissertation and then they'll be convinced. No, I think that it's, I mean, we're all researchers here and scholars, and I think that research is so important, and sharing that story. You have those recidivism numbers, you have that quantitative data, but also the storytelling aspect of what this does is so important too, and understanding the impact. And yeah, I think that it comes down to, fundraising for universities and working with advancement offices and finding ways to get creative and see what kind of scholarships and all of those kinds of things that, can be offered. And I think that too, like, this is something from a government perspective, they're investing in incarceration. This opens up to a whole other conversation of what rehabilitation in the United States looks like. I think reallocating funds from a government level is something that would really, really help that, and how they can support, and whether it's even just creating the materials or supplementing faculty salaries or all of those kinds of things. Like, I think with government support, we need politicians and leaders to advocate for that, will really hopefully make it so universities that don't have the financial bandwidth to do this will have some support and can kind of, like, meet everyone halfway.
I would definitely agree that at the heart of generating interest for this, I mean, the data that you have produced is amazing, and in and of itself is so moving and significant. But like I totally agree, the stories, like the individuals who are involved, there's the stories of the faculty who make the incredible drive, and then the students and their families, and the kind of impact that has on, a whole circle and community, is so, that's where really tugs at the heartstrings, and is, relatable on that very individual level. So yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, do you intend on presenting your data anywhere? I know you're published, and not just your dissertation, right? Did you publish some component recently?
Yes, I published right around the same time as my dissertation. The thing that actually, from a research perspective, created my idea for the dissertation was a paper around organizational behavior and systems theory, and how that can be utilized in correctional education. So I've also talked a little bit about that. And I definitely would love to present on this data, and continue to publish around it, and to continue to ask those questions and continue to add to the narrative. I was really grateful to have awesome participants in the study who were really thrilled to ask to see the dissertation once it's done, and thanked me for contributing to this field of research, because anyone in it knows the impact and knows that there's a lot to still understand and advocate for. So this will definitely not be the last time I'll talk about it or research about it. And, I hope it really continues to be something that I can pour my heart into.
Wonderful. Well, before we go, let's switch gears a little bit, just a tiny bit. Tell us about the postdoc. How's it going? What are you doing? What's your research there?
Yes. Yeah. So I started this casually talking about how I can't believe I'm getting very close to the first semester done of the postdoc. It's been such a great experience so far. I am getting to co-teach and shadow right now this semester for an advanced qualitative research class with Dr. Kay Davis. And then Dr. Davis and I are working to do a mixed methods study about how to support doctoral students on their dissertation journey. So I always say I was so privileged to have a really positive dissertation experience. Maybe that's a strong word. I enjoyed doing my dissertation. I really enjoyed the process, the structure of it, and I had a really great committee that supported me a lot through it. And so Dr. Davis and I are really going to take a look at doctoral students who are in their very first semester of their dissertation journey, and understand what resources have been helpful, what resources are they aware of, how frequent they utilize resources, what their relationship with their chair looks like, just kind of getting to better understand what their experience is, and do they feel prepared, do they feel overwhelmed, and what kind of resources help them feel all those different kinds of ways. Yeah.
So you'll be presenting, you're presenting at the GSEP symposium, but have you all decided where you're going to be where else you're going to be presenting?
We haven't yet. That's on topic to discuss this weekend when I see her. I have always had a dream to be published in and to present with AERA. And I mean, I feel like who in education doesn't want to present there?
Right.
All the nods. So that would be a long shot dream, but definitely excited to see, what ideas Dr. Davis has. And I think it's a really cool opportunity that there is funding for this. So many students right out of school are just trying to get their feet and their bearings once again. So to still be able to kind of ride that wave and have the support of Pepperdine to continue my research and continue my voice as a researcher in education has been a really great opportunity. And I know it's going to continue to feel that way these next few months too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, as we're nearing the end here, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Oh my goodness. I wish I had something wise to leave you all with. No, I think that it's great that you all have this podcast, and that I think it's such a great opportunity, and leadership means so much. There is so much that goes into leadership, and there are so many important topics. I think it's such a great place to share these ideas. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to speak on it. It's been great to have the chance to do so.
Well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Just, such a pleasure to listen to. Absolutely.
And with that, thank you all for joining us. If you've enjoyed today's session, please remember to click the subscribe button. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you all next week.